warm welcome to Kite Builders, your YouTube channel from kite flyers for kite flyers. Today I have a very interesting guest, a kite flyer, or no, I think I need to say a kite artist. Born in '51 in Chile, moved to the United States in '74, and he is now one of the great heads of the American kite scene. Big welcome to Ron Gibian. Ron, welcome to Fanø.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back here with you again, reminiscing of my first trip here in 1992. Those were my early days in kiting, and of course, yesterday coming on the ferry, I was reflecting a little bit on that nearly 30 years ago, I was on that ferry coming here to see something that I had never seen before, and that is, of course, the largest festival in the world, practically. And my good friend and brother, Mr. Scott Skinner, brought me here for the first time, and so it was kind of interesting to be making that journey again, but under very different conditions 30 years later, and having done many things since then. Of course, traveled around the world, and never even then, and that first trip was my first international trip to a kite festival. I never imagined that I would adopt this as a way of life, not just a hobby or a way of business, but really literally a way of life. And that's what it's been for me for that long, actually.
So when do you discover kites for your life, or as part for your life?
The kites, I mean, during my childhood, I remember celebrating Independence Day in Chile is usually done with kites, much like they do in India, with fighter kites. How the India tradition made its way to South America, I'm not quite sure, and of course I have not taken a whole lot of interest in researching that, but on the 18th of September, which is Independence Day, Santiago and most towns in Chile look like Ahmedabad in India, actually, with thousands and thousands of people flying kites on manja line.
And how can we imagine that? Is it the same kites than in India, the small fighter kites?
Yes.
Or do you have some special kites in Chile?
No, it's after the India fighter. The bridling is just slightly different. What they call a tripod Chilean bridle, which has become quite famous in the kite fighting scene. But other than that, it's the same. But as time has gone on, kite fighting became highly illegal. Many people got hurt, and
same in India.
Small country, they don't have the insurance policies that we have in the U.S. to cover things like that. And so I happen to have the pleasure, actually, of hooking up with someone in Chile, a young lady, who had gotten lawyers and people and very important people to help establish the sport of kite flying as a sport in Chile, to keep the law away and things like that. So today in Santiago, there's an actual stadium where they fly the fighter kites.
Really?
So they were very successful. And a very clever guy invented a line that is so abrasive, it's even better than manja line with the glass. And that became legal.
Okay, good.
So,
but between fighter kites and the beauties we can see here, there's a big difference. There's the evolution. So what happens with Ron Gibian as a small child with fighting the fighter kites, and Ron Gibian today, the artist with such a beautiful of kites?
Growing up, how do I put this? Really from artistic parents.
Yes.
My father was a very well-known signature designer, photographer, sculptor, artist. He made his living from commercial art, with some rather large names like Max Factor and Sinclair Paints and some of the big names in the industry. So he was in the advertising business, but he worked from home in the studio on a tilt table, but I remember having my own small tilt table next to him.
Okay.
And so...
How old have you been?
Pardon me?
How old have you been at that time?
Oh my goodness! Since the age of 10, 11 years old. My mother was a fashion couture business designer. So there was
you've grown up in an artist environment.
It was there constantly. Yes. It was in the house, the art on the walls, my father's paintings. Walk into my mother's studio, and there was the sketches of all the clothing that she designed, and she traveled around the world looking for fabrics, and so forth. And I went on some of those trips with her. So it was there for me all the time. So
Have you ever studied art, or did you get the art through mother's breast?
no, a little bit. After high school education, I had a music and art major in college. You know, 4 years of studying that. You know, but that's not something you learn. You know, you polish your skills in university and in schools, but what's inside of your heart, no one can give you that. You know, so. I give my parents total credit for the descendants of all of this, you know, because I grew up around it all the time. So, yeah, it's definitely comes from there. How it evolved into this, well, I remember going to my first kite festival in Santa Barbara, California. And I started buying kites and taking an interest to that, and then I started actually drawing kites and showing them to friends. Went to a large festival in the U.S., the Long Beach Kite Festival, where I met Scott and met many people that I had read. You know,
But where's the step in between? So you grow up in the artist environment together with your parents, get all the help and support from your parents. Where's the next step to kites? Also, it could be that you're a painter or a sculptor or something else.
Good.
No, Ron Gibian worked in kites. So where's the step in between? Where did you discover that kites and art are the combination you are most interested in?
well, I mean, I had done you know, cartooning and sketching and doing all sorts of other art prior to that, and suddenly I stumbled onto kites at a beach, and you know,
Just come out of the blue,
just
or
out of the blue, and,
Yeah.
and I said, wow, this could be interesting. You know, I think I'll try my hand at this, and I started sketching and showing them to friends and people that are highly influential to me in terms of mentorship, in terms of pushing me forward to say, do this. Many people said, oh, you know, you quit buying kites. You know, you need to make your kites. And so basically that's how it started, going to workshops, and the rest is history. It just
what was the
developed.
first kite you built yourself?
Let's see. I remember making a square, you know, sort of cross, long tails. I took 4 bandanas, which you wear around your
Yeah.
neck, with Chinese
Mm-hmm.
sunburst, the Chinese sun, putting them together, bonding the cotton bandanas to a soft ripstop, and then putting a good border on it, and this thing flew, actually. It was amazing. It actually
Okay.
went up in the sky, and I was hooked. And then it evolved into more serious kites, you know, sport kites and single line kites made of better fabrics. You know, one thing led to another, and I can recall that in those early days, you know, like pretty much what I see today and other kite builders when they come in, you want to try your hand at a little bit of everything. But in time, it starts to settle down to a certain style, a certain look, you know, thumbprint that's recognizable. But admittedly, in those early days, I mean, it was very manic, you know, that, and that, a little bit of everything, you know. So you couldn't tell really who did that necessarily.
So you tried all.
Yeah.
Did you get some help? I'm thinking about your gift with your lovely wife, Sandy. How about Sandy? What influence on Sandy on your art?
Highly, not from the art point of view, but from crafting, you know. And sometimes when someone, you know, when you're in something and you're trying to find a means to an end, sometimes things become confusing, and the answer to a small problem sometimes is like right in front of you, and you can't see it. Sandy did a lot of that. She would come into the room and say, okay, so why are you stumbling with this? Oh, because I can't.
Get you back on the right track again.
She would say, well, if you did this, and I go, oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's
sewing.
so easy.
And sewing, of course. I mean, I couldn't have gone to all, neither one of us could have gone together or separately to any of the festivals that we went to without her help with the sewing. You know, we were putting out a lot of kites, you know.
So every big man there is a woman behind.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we've built a lot of kites in very, very high volume, you know, since those early years. I mean, lots and lots of kites, you know, so it's been a journey. For me, it's not really about any particular kite or a particular design. It's for me, it's almost like writing a book. If I could, I would. But I mean, for me, I think I'm doing it just with the kites alone. It's a journey. Every piece is a journey, and they become your children. You know, these things become kind of your children, whether you keep them or you sell them. You know, they.
Is it just a journey? Because if I look on your kites, I think you found your own language through your kites.
You think?
I think so. Yes, you have a very simple, clear language on your kites in both directions, on the form and on the art on the kites, on the design on the kites. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But I think your kites have a kind of wow factor. Yeah, they are very simple. They are very clear. But you got a message. You get a message if you're looking on it.
Sometimes I'm trying to evoke a message. I try not to analyze things too much. I try not to overthink things too much. It's rather spontaneous. It's rather random. I am happy to hear what I'm hearing, that there is that kind of consistency. What you're telling me is that there's this very consistent message and you know and so forth. And sometimes that intent is there, and sometimes I'm trying to evoke that simplicity. But most of the times I would have to admit and say that I'm not thinking really. If it's coming out naturally. It's not something that I'm...
So this just bubbling up as I'm asking, because this is my biggest problem. When I build my kites, and they are far away from the quality of your kites, but if I build my kites and I'm thinking about design, I'm thinking, I'm so complicated and thinking. And then I see your kites and I say, well, just so simple. Why didn't I get that? Yeah. So what is the secret behind Ron Gibian to talk simple but talk with a message?
I don't know if I have an answer for that.
It's just bubbling up in you, or
it's just there.
Yeah.
I can tell you, for instance, I call it doodling. I mean, I could be.
What is doodling?
You know, when you sit on the phone. Have you ever had it when you're at the office and you're having a conversation with someone, and you've been on the phone with somebody for 45 minutes or 30 minutes, and you have a pencil in your hand, and you're on the board on your desk, you're sitting there doing these little drawings and these little things.
No.
I can tell you that this happened. This gridded concept happened because of that. Doodles on paper while I'm talking with someone on the phone, and then I get off the phone and I look at that and I go, oh wow, that could be something. And so I start to clean it up and develop it, and now I have an actual series of kites that I can use on that shape, and pretty soon I have a collection. Other things have been inspired by architectural design. I remember being in Chicago, in Daly Plaza, in the middle of downtown Chicago, looking at a Picasso mandrill. It's a baboon monkey. It's a gorgeous, beautiful, modern sculpture there, and I was fascinated by that. And I said, oh my goodness, I have a shape already that I could put this idea to work, which became the Mandrill Kite, which sort of looks like an astroglide, but it's a baboon monkey, you know. But I don't know if you remember seeing that design. But out of my peripheral view, I kept seeing all these lines, these grids and lines everywhere. So what I was looking at is this massive amount of buildings, high-rise buildings, pyramid shapes, this, that, and we came up with a whole new collection of kites called, Archirhythm.
Is the secret maybe simplification? As I'm thinking about your seahorse. If you see a seahorse, there's 1,000 of different structures in the seahorse. If I see your seahorse, and if I saw it the first time, it was the right wow effect again. It is simplified. You see exactly, it's a seahorse. It is, I will not say comic seahorse, but it is a Ron Gibian seahorse, and it's only a Ron Gibian seahorse. Simplification, maybe the key word.
No, okay. So the story of that is the character kites. They're my kids' kites. It's the kid in me. I've made several of these designs since the early days. The millipede, with the funny eyes, and then there was a squid with the funny eyes. So each one of these kites have a particular style of the eyes, and I've taken the eye and moved the eyelids in a particular way to create a certain expression. So we've done maybe 6 or 7 designs up to date with that sort of thing. And but they're whimsy kites. They're for kids. So they're my festival kites. They're my show kites. We put all of these things up in the sky. The kids come. They love them because of the funny face, you know, the eyes and the expression in the eyes. So it's more of an infantile kind of thing than the artistic thing.
Okay.
You know?
So if these kind of kites are your festival kites, the kids kites, the show kites. What are your favorite kites?
The ones I haven't made.
Okay. So you always will have a favorite kite.
You know, they all become your children, your kids, you know.
Yeah.
So there's no particular preference of I would have, making the figure kites, the character kites, you know, are fun, you know. It's fun to watch the expression, you know, from parents and children and what people have to say about that. And then other people are fascinated by these lines and, you know, gridded things and more artistic designs, you know. So it's a mixed bag, but I don't have a particular thing or love for any specific thing. I do love structure, you know. So I love working with cellular kites, and we've done a few of those as well. And I've had my own set of mentors for that, other people who've come before me who have done amazing things with cellular kites. So I've touched on that part of the kite world as well. Although, you know, cellular kites are difficult to travel with, and there's so many spars, you know, and difficult to put together. So I've kind of gone away from that a little bit. Got more practical, you know.
So Ron Gibian in 10 years, what can we expect?
More of the same and better, you know, just more. I hope I can, 10 years from now, still have the energy and the mind, my hands and the mind to have the, you know, to have it up here to be able to keep creating. But I can say that to date, I have drawers and drawers and drawers full of folders, full of drawings of kites that I have not done yet. Some things, and some of these creature kites that you're seeing here lately, some of those were drawn 8, 9, 10 years ago. I never got around to doing it. Yeah. So it's like an endless pool, you know. So even if the brain went dead tomorrow, I could still refer back to my books and say, okay, here's something, and make it new again. Other pieces I put together and or design or sketch, and I said, I don't think I have the skill for this just yet. So okay. I'll wait. And sure enough, I'll look at that design again, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 years later, and then say, oh, now I can do this. Now the time is right for this, and I can do this and execute it better than I would have been.
Yeah, what are the right skills? When are the right times? From the technical perspective?
Yes.
From the artist readiness? Or?
Yes, it's not the image, it's not the art part as much as how am I going to make this structure. It's still a functional object. It's still a kite, and it has to fly. It's not going to be a wall hanging. So how can I do both? How can I be artistic with this or not, or whimsical instead, and make it work? And sometimes that has to do with the structure, the bridling, or whatever. I don't have the concept quite together in my head.
Okay.
So I just stop. I just leave it alone, let it rest, and then come back to it later.
Bubble up again.
Bubble up again. Yeah. So, but it's pretty much there's enough to go around for quite some time.
If I take a look in your amazing kite portfolio, I can see that it is more or less traditional kites with sticks and framing and all that stuff. What about inflatable kites? Ron Gibian, inflatable kites?
Oh boy. That's a whole different game right there with structure, you know, because it's a soft structure, you know, there's still inside parts that go into these kites to keep them inflated and keep them structurally sound, you know. And I know so little about that, although I've done inflatable tails and parts, and I know that you have to, you know, cut gores, and you have to sort of shape the part to, you know, to make a ball or whatever shape, you know, the same as what you see in that kite up there. You have to sew that curve in, you know. So that same concept applies to making a lot of things that are shaped a certain way, you know. And to this day, I have not taken too much of an interest So I can say that I don't have the I mean, I could acquire the skills, I could do the research, I could talk to people and other experts who do inflatable kites. I'm sure a lot of it's designed on computer, which I don't do a whole lot. How do you enlarge the templates? I mean, if you design something this big, how do you, grade the templates,
blow them up,
blow them up to be gigantic,
Okay, good. Back to the artist side. We have a lot of followers sitting at home now, building their own kites, and they need to know how do we come to an artist kite? How do we come from our idea, from a feeling or an idea which bubbles up, to a really cool wow design? What tips do we have for our viewers?
Well, one of the things that I've heard and it's been said to me by kite makers, they say, well, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist by trade. I don't have that same thing. And I kind of disagree. I think everybody has that in them somewhere, and I just think you have to dig deep in there and find it.
So how do we get
but
it out?
even if you're not, let's just say you're not, you don't have it. But instead of and you need to copy something, or you need to pull designs from a magazine or a picture or whatever. There's so many ways to take that image and make it your own, instead of just projecting that onto the surface of a kite. You can take a part of that image and put it on the kite. You can crop things to make them more interesting. You can take that image and make it exit the kite, instead of putting a face right in the center or something. How about taking a corner of that face and putting it in that kite, so the eyes and the face, so it becomes more artistic and more interesting looking, and you can do all of that without being a trained artist, without having that knowledge or having that in your heart,
Just trial and error.
Trial and error, trying different things and looking at images and say what would look good, and matching an image to a kite, not just any image. Form and function, So pick drawings, pick images that fit the form. That's also part of being artistic, With any graphic, try to use the correct graphic or the correct pictorial image and make it fit into that shape. Sometimes it works on many, sometimes certain images are only good for certain shapes in my mind, So again, it's that trial and error thing, and I think that works with the mechanical aspect of kites and the artistic side of a kite,
Good, great words, good tips for our viewers. To the end, anything you would like to tell our viewers?
Never ever stop. If you adopt this, if you get into this, do not stop. Keep designing, keep sketching. Even if you're not ready then to build a kite, the time will come when you will be ready. And search the knowledge out there. Go out there and get as much information, because information and knowledge is power, and it applies to kites. Learn structure. Try to pay a little bit of attention to proportions, balance, and what makes a kite work for flight. Develop some really stable, good platforms, and then let the artwork run crazy on top of it.
So it comes from some.
Yeah.
Good, Ron. Thank you so much. And if you guys out there do have the chance to grab Ron on a kite field, grab the chance. This is such a great kite flyer of our time, and really he has a lot to tell. Not only the 20-30 minutes we have just here on Fanø. Nope, grab this guy, ask him, learn from him, because there is a lot to learn from Ron Gibian. Ron, thank you for your time. Thank you that we could join you here on Fanø, and then see you on kite field again.
Thank you, and thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here. And one more thing, whatever you learn, pass it on. Just share the same knowledge that other people are sharing with you. When you learn that, you pass it on as well.
Couldn't say this better. So, bye for now. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
I will do the same. Goodie. Yeah.
Take one.
Hi and welcome and a warm welcome to you. Oh,
Take two.
the pressure is on. Hi. Hi and a warm welcome from Kite Builders, the YouTube channel for kite builders, about kite builders. And today we have a special kite builder, Ron Gibian, my friend. He has a lot to say. I'll let him talk now. Talk, Ron, talk.
I'm out of words.